All right, hello everybody. This is Patrick Dennis with Eureka, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to do a video that kind of shows how Eureka and Field Service Lightning can go really well together. We're going to talk about how Field Service Lightning is the perfect application to schedule technicians to go out into the field, intelligently optimize those schedules so that we're sending the right technician to the right job at the right time. And then we're also going to be talking about when the technician gets there, when they have to do certain jobs, when they have to fill out certain forms or complete some checklists, be guided through procedures. We're going to use Eureka alongside Field Service Lightning in order to accomplish that specific requirement. And we're going to do it all in the spirit of kind of the standard Salesforce demo that many of us have seen, where we're looking at wind turbines. We're going out and we're servicing those turbines. So the whole demo is going to be around that specific use case. Really quick, for those of you who do not know what we are or what we do, Eureka is a Salesforce-native forms and assessments application. So we enable people, particularly mobile users, to go out into the field, complete complex checklists and assessments, be guided through procedures, and then all of that data is stored then back on Salesforce. And as it pertains to Field Service Lightning, when you think about the Field Service mobile application, again, kind of routing those technicians to where they need to go, we can easily punch out into a Eureka checklist as soon as the technician arrives on the job so that they can be guided through a specific procedure, complete all that information, even if they're offline, and then all the data is going to then get stored back in Salesforce. So with that said, I'm going to flip over to my demo org here, and we'll walk through a series of steps, again, in the spirit of the wind turbine repair use case. So on the left-hand side of my screen, what I have is a work order record inside of the Salesforce Field Service console. And then on the right-hand side of my screen, I have my iPhone that has the Field Service mobile application pulled up where we're ready to go as a technician out to do a specific job. Now, I've got several work orders in the system, but one of them is assigned to me today. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at that work order, and you can see that, right there on the right hand side of the screen on my iPhone. So I'm going to tap into that battery replacement service appointment, and right away we can obviously see all the basic information about this work order and service appointment. So we can see when the service appointment is supposed to be there. I could get directions to go there. In this case, it's going to take me a little bit of time, but I can also see some basic contact information, asset service history, any work order line items that might be associated with this type of work. So a lot of really great information for me as a technician. But when I get there, when I actually show up on site, there's several things that I need to do. We're going to be filling out job safety assessments. We're going to be guided through a battery replacement. We're going to be doing just some general wind turbine maintenance. So when we get there, we're going to need some of these complex checklists. So I'm going to open up this little action menu in the bottom of my screen. And right in the middle there, we could see this button called View Forms. And what this is going to do is it's going to take me over into the Eureka mobile application, where I can immediately see the work order that we're working on right now. I can tap check-in, which is great for the folks back at the office who are looking for an audit trail on what we're doing here. I've just grabbed the latitude and longitude of my device's location. I've grabbed the date and time stamp so that as we checked in, we've got that information readily available for us in the event that we might need it. Now from here, I can see I have a screen of 3 different forms that I need to fill out for this particular job. And those forms are actually right here inside of Salesforce. So we can see that there's a forms related list on our record here in Salesforce. We've got 1, 2, and 3 forms: a job safety assessment, a general wind turbine maintenance, and then a battery maintenance checklist. And so all 3 of those forms are already right here and available for me as the technician. And I might even be able to see, in this case, we can see the order that they need to be filled out. The job safety assessment first to make sure that we're working safely, then the general turbine maintenance, and then finally our battery maintenance checklist. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do all 3 of these forms today. We're going to pretend as though that we just completed the job safety assessment, and we're going to jump right into the general turbine maintenance. Now what we can see here is as soon as we click in, we'll see a form that's ready for us to fill out. Now the first thing I'd draw your attention to is that these forms are pre-populated with data from Salesforce. So in this case, we're pulling in information from our work order record. We can see our work order subject and our work order description are sitting right inside the form. And this just goes to show you how Eureka can flexibly update information right inside of Salesforce from our forms. So in this case, maybe I want to make an update to the work order description, and I might say, we're doing maintenance on the battery for Ohana. So I'll just make a change to that field, and we'll notice that when we submit that form back to Salesforce, that field will then be updated, right, just based on the form having been submitted. Next, we're going to go into our full safety, our pre-work safety check. So really quick, we'll just see whether or not we actually did complete that JSA. And here, if the event, in the event that we said no, maybe we'll present a message to our user to say something like, listen, you have to complete the JSA before you continue work. Stop here, return back to this form once you've completed this step. But let's say that they did complete the JSA. Now we're going to click on yes, and right away we're brought into a new set of questions and sections that show us some helpful information about the work that we're about to do. So in this case, we completed the JSA, but here, just as a reminder for your safety, here are about 6 things that you need to make sure that you're reviewing and understanding before you actually complete this work. Going out and working on these pieces of equipment can be challenging. It can be dangerous if not all the proper procedures are followed and adhered to. So we're going to show a little message right there for our user to make sure that they're doing everything they can to stay safe. And we're going to give them an option in the bottom half of this screen to check off anything that might not be right. So maybe there's not the proper equipment can't be de-energized, or we don't have the right protective equipment. So we can provide ways for somebody to check off those boxes here. And throughout all this, you can kind of see we have this conditional display logic that's showing and hiding questions based on answers to previous questions. So the forms are extremely flexible, and they can show all the right kind of content and questions to the user as they fill it out. Now next, we'll just say I want to certify that we've completed all the risk assessments and that we acknowledge that we've done everything in our power to ensure that this is going to be a safe job. So we'll sign off here, and then we'll proceed on to the next page where we can start to fill out some other information related to our job right here. So the first thing we might want to do is we'll indicate, any previous issues that might have been discussed with the customer. And so here, this will open up a section that says, what did we discuss? What did the customer say related to their to any previous issues that might have existed on this piece of equipment? And here we could type it in, or we could also speak it into our device. So we might say something like, there were issues with the lubricant. And that's just a really easy way for us to start typing information into the form or enter information into the form without having to necessarily use our fingers. Next, we'll just check off some of these simple boxes, like verify that all the holding down bolts are tight and that all visible fixings and bolts are correct. Next, we might want to scan a barcode to verify that we have the proper converter cabinets right in front of us. So this is a way for us to verify the system that might be right in front of us. So we could click on this little barcode scan here, and I just have a sample barcode here. And what we'll see is that the barcode is actually just going to be read immediately, and it looks like the system was in fact verified. So I can click on open up and review those converter cabinets. And at this time, I might need to take a photo of what we see inside of those cabinets. So I can click on this little camera icon right in the middle of my screen, and we'll capture a photo. And so this is what it looks like inside of those cabinets. So we'll just want to snap an image of that, so for our records later on, we can refer to them if we need to. Now I can jump in here, I can mark up any of this stuff. If I want to highlight certain things in the photo, I can certainly do that. And these photos are going to get saved back to Salesforce along with all this data. Now I can take many photos if I want to, but in this case I'm just going to take one and we'll move on with our process. We'll verify that there's no corrosion on any of the metal parts, and then we'll get to a point here where we need to be confirming the temperature of this piece of equipment. So there might be several points throughout this wind turbine that we can sample and grab temperatures from just to make sure that everything is going okay. So the first thing I might want to do is look at the different sample points that maybe we might need to reference as a part of taking a temperature. And then for one of those, perhaps we can grab the temperature in Fahrenheit. So here I'll say, that it was 10 degrees. And if it's 10 degrees, we'll convert that over into Celsius. And then we'll also show a warning that says that any temperature above negative 20 Celsius is a hazard. So we need to notify the customer that we intend to replace this cooling unit. Now for this, I'm going to actually just change it over to, we'll call this negative 20 degrees, and you'll see that that warning message has gone away. The Celsius calculation has been updated. So this is an example of how we can continue to show the right kind of information, as well as do complex calculations while we're even offline. Next, we'll indicate that there might be signs of coolant leakage. So we'll indicate that, coolant replenishment requires a separate service appointment, so we'll actually automatically be creating a work order in the system as a result of us answering yes to this question. Finally, we'll indicate some of the comments related to our customers' feedback, so we'll say they were really happy with the service today. And we'll grab the customer's name. I'll just put my name in here. And we'll grab a signature from them to indicate that they acknowledge that all the service work was done correctly and that they're happy with it. Now next, I can click submit, and what this is going to do is if I'm online, it's going to actually send all the data back to Salesforce immediately. That includes the answers to every single question. It'll update the work orders and any other related records that we might have wanted it to, and it will also update the photos inside of Salesforce as well. So everything is going to be back inside of the system. Now, in a standard workflow, I might go through all three of these checklists before I check out and go on to my next job. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to do the rest of those checklists. I just want to show you what things look like back in Salesforce. So I'm going to open up my screen here, give us a little bit more real estate, and I'm actually going to refresh my page. And when we do this, what we'll notice as this kind of loads up, that all the information that we just entered in those forms has now been made available back in Salesforce. So for example, we'll see that we changed the description of the work order field here, so doing maintenance rather than whatever it was before. So we've made updates to this particular record, and what's great about Eureka is it can flexibly work with any other object that you might have in the system. So if we wanted to update the work order, the account, the contact, the asset all at once, we could be doing that in a single form. It's very flexible in that way. The other thing that we'll want to look at is let's go look at the form. We'll see that actually one of these forms has been submitted from the field. And if I click into the form, what we can see here is all of the answers, every data point that was collected while we were out in the field is now available for us here inside of Salesforce. So the answers to every question, as well as the photos that were captured while we were in the field, everything is right here for us to reference. So that if we have an approval process that we need to go through for each of these forms, we can do that, or we could certainly have this for any audit information. Above at the top here, we have some Eureka Insights. So we can see that we've automatically generated this discovery, which you can see over here is actually its own record in the system that can be used for all sorts of business process. But we'll say that based on the answers to certain questions in the form, we've identified that coolant leakage has been identified. Maybe we need to do something as a follow-up, perhaps create a work order, create another service appointment for that work order that will help address that specific need that maybe couldn't have been addressed while we were on site. We're also tapping into some Salesforce Einstein features here. So you can see we're using an Einstein sentiment model to basically understand if the customer's comments were positive or negative. And we're also running our images through an Einstein Vision image recognition model to understand whether or not equipment maybe is safe, or whether or not we can identify corrosion or rust on some of the pieces of equipment that we're looking at. So a lot of power can come with the fact that these forms, which in yesterday's world might have been on paper, these are now digitized, and we can use the power of the Salesforce platform to manage business process, give an organization really important insights about their form, and streamline a lot of the processes that used to take forever in the most complicated ways to make them work. So this is what it can kind of look like when we're reviewing a form. The last thing that I want to show you is what it looks like to actually edit these templates. So if I go here in Salesforce and I go to our Form Templates tab, what we can see is I might want to make a change to one of the forms that we were using, that our team was using out in the field. And I can easily do that here by clicking in and editing this template. We'll create a new version, and from here we're taken to our drag and drop editor, where it's really easy to create new questions just by dragging them onto the canvas. So as you can see here, we're editing a copy of that general turbine maintenance form template, and I can just easily drag and drop new questions onto the editor and make those available immediately for my users out in the field, so that when we go out and do a battery maintenance or any sort of preventative maintenance on these wind turbines tomorrow, this version of the form will be made available as opposed to the last one. So there's a lot of value that can come with having a drag and drop editor right here in Salesforce with the native solution like Eureka, to be able to drive the forms and ensure that they're always up to date with the correct business processes. So that's all for today. That's what it looks like to combine Field Service Lightning with Eureka to accommodate some of these complicated forms and checklists and procedures while we're out in the field and perhaps even offline.